And welcome here to TalkFCB, and welcome back to the channel here today, guys, where I am back. You know, we've had a few days without any uploads. I've been taking a few days just to sort of mentally reset, I guess, during this international break. Obviously, we had a really disappointing end to the La Liga stuff before the break happened. Barca losing by 4-1 against Sevilla, and I wouldn't actually say the break has helped mentally at all, because it seems as though Barca keep going into these international breaks, giving us nothing to go on. You know, in the last one, we actually went into the break with a 1-1 draw against Rayo Vallecano. That wasn't really ideal. And now we've gone in with an awful defeat. It was an absolutely shocking game, and I'm still not over it, to be perfectly honest with you. And I've got to say, from the inside of the club, the reaction has been kind of mixed. You know, I wouldn't say there's a lot of panic inside of Barca, listening to Hansi Flick, listening to the Barcelona players, you know, the feeling as well in the media as well. There's no real panic, and I guess that's a good thing. You know, we shouldn't be panicking too much. It is just one bad game. You know, we had another one against PSG, but, you know, anybody could lose to PSG, arguably. So it was really a bad week from Barca. But yeah, there's no need to overly panic because of that one bad week. But my problem, and I guess my concern would be, have there been a few warning signs already during the season so far? You know, I wouldn't say that we started the season brilliantly with some of our performances there. I think there were a few, you know, big warning signs in some ways. You're looking at the game against Levante, for example. Barca didn't play all that well in that game. Quite lucky in the end to win it in the final moments of the match. You know, even against Mallorca, they went down, of course, to 9 men. And even early on in the season, Hansi Flick was talking about egos. He was talking about the work ethic not quite being the same as it was last season. So I don't really think here we can say, oh, it's just one game, it's just 1 week. I think there are some concerns. Now, what people will say, and what people have been saying in the media, 7 games for Barca. That's what they played in the space of 21 days, which, can I just say, is ridiculous. Now, it's not just to do with Barca. You know, there's lots of clubs all around Europe here who are playing an insane amount of football, players here having to play huge amounts of minutes, and that's why every single major team around the world, they're suffering with injuries. They will have key players out. We will not be seeing, you know, the best players against the best all the time, because the games are ridiculous, and UEFA and FIFA, they are behind that. They have given us this footballing calendar, which is simply unsustainable. Now, what I thought was absolutely incredible over the past few days, guys, speaking about UEFA, this Barca Villarreal game, which has now, by the way, been given UEFA's seal of approval to be held in the USA to play the Villarreal game in Miami. That will happen there in December. Now, like I say, UEFA approved that matchup. They could have rejected it. They could have there shut down that game being played overseas, but they didn't. And what I find extraordinary, though, is UEFA's ability here to almost, in their statement that they made about approving that game, they almost take the moral high ground somehow by saying basically, oh, we're not setting a precedent here. We don't agree with games being played abroad. We don't want clubs to do this. It was almost as though UEFA was saying, oh, if only somebody could have stopped them. If only somebody could have said no. You know, we wish somebody would have been able to help. It's literally you. You could have said no. You could have blocked the game. You didn't. And I think all UEFA are doing, by the way, here, they want to see how this goes. They want to see maybe how this could impact them. If they can benefit financially from these kinds of games going abroad, you can bet they will sanction them. There will be more and more of these if UEFA are getting a slice of the pie. That's all it's going to come down to. Do not take on here UEFA taking that moral high ground. It's absolute nonsense. They are the worst of the worst, and they will certainly be down for more of these kinds of games. It's not just Barca, by the way. Many people are criticising Barca for this, but there's also a game in Serie A, Milan against Como, which is going to take place there in Australia. Now, I've got to be honest with you, I do have concerns about the Barca Villarreal game, and I know many people in America, they're going to enjoy it, and I'm absolutely sure it's going to be a great occasion there in Miami. I'm not questioning that side of things at all. They're going to put on a show. That's absolutely what's going to happen. There's been lots of footballing events there. The Club World Cup. The World Cup, of course, is also going to be in America. No problems at all about that. But my concern in terms of the integrity of these tournaments here, because what we are essentially doing is playing this game in a neutral stadium. Now, obviously, every season, every team has 19 home games. Every team has 19 away games. That's the way the league table is decided. Now, Barca already here, they have got 18 away games, and they're going to have one in a neutral stadium. And I know that people are going to start crying about that. Now, we have a fantastic record away at Villarreal anyway. You know, there's every chance we would have gone away and won that game, perhaps. But you just know that the likes of Real Madrid, if it comes down to it at the end of the season, if there's just a tiny, tiny gap in the title race, people are going to start talking about this. And I'm just kind of sad that Barca find themselves in a position here whereby it feels as though we have to do everything that we can, all of the morals, all of the, the ideas that we've had, the ideology that we have as a club, it's got to go out the window if we can make a few more euros. We are so desperate right here for income, for money coming in. That is why we are one of the teams who were desperate to play this game outside of Spain. It is now going to happen. I think there is going to be more of them. I think it's going to happen more often. I really, really do. I think UEFA saying here, this is not going to be setting a precedent. I actually think that's exactly what it's going to be doing. And this might be the start, because football is going this way. It's becoming this sport that just latches on to every opportunity. You can't tell me other clubs wouldn't be looking at this situation thinking, could we make a bit more? Could we go ahead there? Could we expand the fan base? Could we do different kind of things? Everybody's thinking that. All the owners of these clubs, at the end of the day, they're thinking about that top and bottom line. It's just the way that things work right now in the game. So I think this is something that we do have to look into. And I think it's interesting as well. We're going to be then in America right before Christmas in December. In January then, we're off to Saudi Arabia for the Spanish Super Cup. That just proves the point here. We're already playing the Spanish Super Cup outside of Spain. That's already been taken to Saudi Arabia, the highest bidder, and this is just the way that we are going. But can I also just say, guys, some news as well over the past few days. I was quite sad, I've got to be honest with you, to see Matteo Almani back in La Liga, but not with us. That really, really did sting. To see him right there now as the new Atletico Madrid sporting director. Yeah, that did make me a bit sad. Matteo Almani, for me, he was so good here. And I know that he did have the benefit of all of the financial levers. Of course, he was able to work with that money, that capital that was raised, and we were able to use it there and then, which has had certain knock-on effects. But I did just like the way that he did business. I did just like the way that Almani was very, very hands-on. He was a good planner. He was a good communicator as well. He understood exactly what was required of him in a difficult role at Barca. And what you also felt with Almani is that in difficult times, in difficult decisions and moments, he had real experience to fall back on. He has a long list of clubs here, long list of accomplishments in the game, and I just don't think we felt that kind of experience, that kind of know-how from Deco now in the sporting director role at Barca. It's almost as though, and you kind of see it in the way that he goes about his business, he is very much learning on the job, because even in interviews, Deco actually talks to the media quite often, to be honest, more than most sporting directors, and quite often there are things that he says that you just think, well, why did you say that? Why did you feel the need to go and say that? It would have been better maybe to stay silent on that, to maybe not actually commit yourself one way or another. He is still learning on the job. And speaking about the difficulties that we are facing at Barca right now, let's talk about the stadium. I mean, again, nobody wants to. A lot of these topics today, guys, and this is why I'm feeling a bit down, a bit frustrated right now, I've got to be honest, they're not positive ones. I want to be here talking about great things, exciting things at Barca. That's just not the reality at the moment here. We're talking about the stadium, and yet again, surprise, surprise, we're not going to be back at the new Camp Nou after the international break. Against Girona, we are going to be at Montjuic. And now what we're starting to hear from the club, every delay that happens now we're hearing, we're only not going back because we didn't want 27,000 fans inside the stadium. We want more than that. We're aiming higher than that. So right now, we'd rather play. The club are implying they'd rather play at Montjuic, where you get 45, where you get 50,000 fans inside the stadium. So the club are implying almost that it's their choice, that they are taking the option to play at Montjuic at this point instead of the Camp Nou. They'd rather wait until they get maybe 50,000 inside of the new stadium. But one potential positive thing that I do want to talk about today is about the atmosphere. Now, I spoke about that in the match review against Sevilla there because I was so impressed. I wasn't surprised, we see it all the time, when games are played in Seville, whether it's at Sevilla, whether it's at Real Betis, their crowds are absolutely amazing. The atmospheres that are generated, it's incredible. And by the way, Real Betis this season, they're playing away from their stadium, hasn't affected their atmosphere in the slightest. They are still absolutely vibrant inside the stadium. Now, Barca, they've got a big problem. We are not like these clubs. We are not generating that kind of atmosphere. You think about the game against PSG, should be an absolutely massive European game, a heavyweight clash between two top teams. That stadium should have been rocking, And it wasn't. It was completely flat, and PSG could be heard, singing and chanting over the top of the home fans. Now, what I've spoken about before over on MORETALKFCB is the problem that Barca have. They don't have an animation stand anymore. They don't have a group that are in charge of getting those chants, really starting the atmosphere and creating that kind of environment inside of stadiums. For Barca, they don't have that there. There was a falling out with the board. They stepped away. They've never come back. Now, according to the media right here today, Barca, they are working on a new animation group there to be inside of the stadium. And apparently they've met with certain fan groups in connection with Barca. Of course, they're also looking at maybe younger people who are on the season ticket waiting list. That's a long, long list, by the way, a really, really long list. So like I say, the people who are inside the stadium, especially season ticket holders, they've had to wait for their chance. They should be making the most, really, of every single opportunity they get to see this Barca team. It's a very, very hot ticket. But yeah, Barca are speaking to several different groups right now. They are going to have that new animation group, and hopefully that will start to come into effect soon, because I think we need it. Barca right now, they're struggling in terms of energy. They're struggling to bring intensity in some games, and I think everybody really at the club, whether it's fans, whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's the board, of course the players, we've got to ramp things up. We have got to be better. We've got to be sharper. We've got to be more intense after this international break is over, because we do have some big tests to come. And of course, you've got the Clásico in the not too distant future. At the end of the month, we play against Real Madrid. That is going to be an absolutely huge game and potentially a decisive game. Early on in the season that it is, we've got to start setting the tone. We have to start showing the kind of Barca that we were seeing last season. The intensity, the pressing, the high line has got to be improved. But we're going to be talking more about that. We are going to start to ramp things up soon, guys. But I was just taking a few days here to get some rest, to recover from the emotional torture that we went through at the weekend. But I hope you're all doing well. A few topics here today that I want to go through with you. Like I say, unfortunately, they're not all perfect. They're not all rosy. But that is Barca right now. We've got to face up to what is going on. We have to talk about these topics if and when they come about. So please do let me know, guys, in the comments down below here today. What did you make of the reaction after Sevilla against Barca? What did you make of UEFA's decision and the decision in general to take Barca versus Villarreal overseas? Let me know your thoughts on Matia Almani and Atletico Madrid, and also your thoughts on the stadium developments and the fact that Barca still are not returning yet to the Spotify Camp Nou. I will see all of you very soon indeed with more. I appreciate all of the support and, of course, your patience, guys. But until next time, as always, Veshka, El Barça.